Welcome inside the RX Muscle Studios in New York for a special episode of Iron Debate brought to you by SciTech Nutrition. I'm your host, Cedric Faruqi. Glad you can join us on this Wednesday afternoon as we sit about 2.5 weeks out of the Arnold Classic. Hard to believe, but in 2.5 weeks, we will be in Columbus, Ohio, breaking down the 2016 Arnold Classic. Our coverage brought to you by SciTech Nutrition. Visit SciTechNutrition.com. We appreciate all their support in the Iron Road to the Arnold, and of course, all the support they're going to be providing us at the Arnold Classic. 4 topics, all debate, no agreements on this show as we now introduce our competitors. We first go to Portland, Maine, and introduce the man they call the technician, who I believe is actually in Boston this afternoon, Chris Aceto. Chris, how you doing today?
Good. I'm actually at my sister's house, but if I look out the bedroom window, I can see the Boston Mass's Christmas tree from here.
Now, is that actually the Boston Mass or his Christmas tree? And is he in your sister's backyard? Is that where he is?
No, he doesn't even have a Christmas tree. He don't put up one of those artificial ones. He just delivers it from behind.
So you're saying he is the Christmas tree?
Well, we're moving ahead. He's part of one of the questions, and I think I gave away the answer. But go ahead, keep going.
We now go to Guadalajara, Mexico, and bring in the man they call Boss Number 2. Of course, we're talking about John Romano. John, how you doing tonight?
What's up? How is everybody?
Johnny, can we see John Romano? There he is. Because I wanted to point out to the audience right now, that is an image of the most dangerous man in North America right now with that beard. John, you are bringing it with the beard and the beanie. Well done.
Yeah, it's one of life's little jests that I would have more hair on my body than on my head. So I decided to capitalize on it.
He looks like El Japo, whatever's the guy.
No, remember Brutus from Popeye?
Yes, yes. And I have to say, Dave, just from a production standpoint, you look at John right now, it looks like he's in a proper studio with the white background and everything like that. So well done, John, as we now head out to Florida. Newly transplanted New Yorker in Florida. There are zillions of them, but this man stands out to us. He was on our Olympia preview Iron Debate, and of course, we're talking about the man with 1,000 job titles, Fakhri Mubarak. Fakhri, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. How's everybody out there?
How do you like it down in Florida?
It was pretty cool until we had a tornado pass by my house yesterday and it missed it by like 5 feet. It took out 3 of my trees, but thank God, they hit the property.
So you were telling us before the broadcast that your particular area had been tornado-free for quite some time, and the moment you moved down is when the tornado decided to hit.
Yeah, and there hadn't been a hurricane here in a while. There'll probably be one here this year, too. So,
Business-wise, how's it going down in Florida? I know that was a huge endeavor for you.
Yeah, we're doing good. We had to move down here for, just for a bunch of reasons. It's a bigger warehouse, less money. Exportations, importations are coming in from Florida. So it was an overall, better business opportunity for us to move the Factrition company down here. I kept the stores in New York, and of course, I'm keeping my clients. I'm still prepping the same amount of clients. So, I'm working, man. You guys know I work.
And of course, joining us in studio, the man with the final word, Dave Palumbo. Now, Dave, when you look at this cast that we have with Chris, with John, and of course with Fakhri, this is what you like, especially as we head in to one of the 2 biggest shows of the year.
What I don't understand, Johnny Styles, is how come Fakhri looks so good? How come his camera angle looks better than mine does?
I'll tell you why.
You're like HD.
Because why?
Why is it?
My girlfriend set up my camera.
Oh, there
she
you
did
go.
a great job. I'm telling you, you look like you're on ESPN over there.
That's awesome, man. Thank you, Dave.
She did a good job. Anyway, I am looking forward to obviously this debate because the Arnold and the Olympia are the 2 biggest shows of the year, and there's always controversy. The Olympia is kind of always the same group. The Arnold is always like you never know who's going to be there. So I think this is a good cast, and I'm interested to see what these guys have to say about it.
As we go to our first topic of debate, and of course, when you talk about a big show, you start with Kai Greene. Kai Greene, who's going to be entering the 2016 Arnold Classic as right now, and I uses word of quotes, prohibitive favorite going into the show. Here's the question, and it's going to be a two-part question. The first, we're going to start with the physical aspect of Kai Greene. Physically, is he ready to win this show when you look at the competition nipping at his heels, namely Justin Compton, who right now is many analysts' trendy pick to win the show, Cedric McMillan, who really was the darling of last year's show when he finished fourth to a cascade of boos. So Fakhri Mubarak, we're going to start with you on this one. Physically speaking, do you see Kai primed to win the Arnold?
Well, I mean, you can't ever count him out. He is one of the top two bodybuilders in the world the last few years. He decided not to compete last year in Olympia. We had the debate about that. Then the whole Prague thing, pulling out and not doing the finals. I don't think it's a physical and mental issue with him. I just think he had a lot of stuff going on from what I heard afterwards. But, I mean, you can't ever count him out. That's Kai Greene.
Chris Aceto, let's go to you on this one. From a physical standpoint, do you see Kai as your odds-on favorite to win the Arnold?
I mean, he's more of the odds-on favorite than, certainly more than Justin Compton. I mean, let's be real. Justin Compton was third last year. I mean, and he does not have the amount of truly dense muscularity that Kai has. So I think if you put them side by side, I don't think that it's. I think we'll be talking Kai all day long. So Kai is Kai, which means he's crazy, and we mean that in a good sense. So he's either going to nail it or he's going to be off. There's absolutely going to be no in between.
John Romano, what do you say about Kai Greene from a physical perspective heading into the 2016 Arnold? Do you see him as primed to win?
I think it depends on what you like. I mean, Kai has definitely a unique physique, and I think pound for pound, you're not going to find a guy with more muscle than him, and it's interestingly put together too. So if you like that sort of alien freak that he is, absolutely physically he can do it. Condition-wise, like Chris said, he's either going to be absolutely 100% on or went grazing at the Chinese buffet. You could go either way. So we don't know about that, and that's probably going to lead into part B of this question. I'm sure you're going to ask us about his mental capacity.
Absolutely.
So I'll reserve my answer for that. But physically, yes. I mean, if you are a Kai Greene fan, if you like the Kai Greene physique, if you like that kind of freakazoid monster that he is, and he comes in at 100%, there's no keeping it from him. I mean, it's his.
Let's go to Dave Palumbo for the final word. Physically speaking, Dave, where do you see Kai Greene as an odds-on favorite to coming into this 2016 Arnold?
Well, to quote Chris Aceto, we haven't heard very much from Kai. Usually when you don't hear things from people, it's usually not good news. So while I don't think I've ever seen Kai look bad on stage, but I don't think we're going to see a peaked Kai Greene. I don't think we're going to see the best version we've seen of Kai Greene. I think that's behind him. I don't think that we're going to see an 09 Kai. I think we're going to be let down by whatever version of Kai Greene we do see on stage, because it's not going to be the one we want to see. Whether that version will be good enough to win the show, that remains to be seen, of course, because we don't know what everyone else will look like. But I don't think we're going to see the best Kai Greene now.
So before we get to the mental perspective of Kai Greene and whether or not he has it mentally to go in there and win this big show, Fakhri, let's go back to you on this one. Make a case for why Justin Compton will win the 2016 Arnold.
Well, last year I sat with Dave in the audience, and I think we pretty much agreed that if it wasn't for the blurry water film that Justin had in his stomach, he would have pushed Dexter for the title, even pushed Dexter for second, a branch one for second place. I think Justin is a marvel. I think he's always been a marvel. I think his progression has been more than it's been an incredible progression. And I've been saying he's the heir apparent to Mr. Olympia, for some time already. So if Kai does come off, which is a possibility, like you guys said, because he's either going to be on or he's going to be off. Justin could win this, and he could win, the 2016 Arnold Classic.
So let's go back to the original question, and I guess the part B of that question, and that is with Kai Greene, mentally. And now again, to preface what we're talking about mentally, you have to look back to 2014 where he had that press conference meltdown at the Olympia, and then of course the near onstage confrontation with Phil Heath, and then fast forward 3 weeks after that, pulling out of the Prague Pro, which ushered in all sorts of questions as far as where Kai Greene was mentally as far as his stage in his career. And then of course last year, the last Olympia, pulling out, and of course the drama that ensued, not signing the contract, why he didn't sign the contract, and really still an unanswered question. So mentally speaking, Fakhri, do you see Kai going into this show, the Arnold Classic, and winning it?
Okay. Here's the thing about Kai. Kai is not a mentally stable person. We all know that. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying that in a way that he believes in himself and he believes in a lot of things. You talk to him, he talks about the moon, the sun, the clouds, and everything else. So as far as mentally speaking, we're not psychiatrists, we're not psychologists. We can't say what Kai's mental mindset is right now. But I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with his mentality. I think it has to do with him getting into the gym, training, and the point that his body could still hold up. I mean, he's still younger than I am. I believe he's 40 years old. Dex is, in his late 40s. So I don't know. I don't think the mentality is a big deal, man. It's just, it got to him about, people not giving him enough credit, and that's what, that's what caused the conference, between the conference, build up between him and Phil, and then, Phil always winning and Kai not winning, that caused some friction on stage, so it's just a matter of I think it's just a matter of him being physically ready for the show.
Chris Aceto, let's go to you next. And before we get to this part of the question, we had Fakhri give a case for why Justin Compton can win. And Justin Compton, again, is the trendy favorite to beat Kai Greene. And again, we mentioned Cedric McMillan and finishing fourth last year. Many consider him to be a dark horse coming into this 2016 Arnold. Make a case for why Cedric McMillan might slide into that winner's circle.
Well, because he beat Justin Compton last year. Justin's gut was hanging out and he had no separation. And it took Arnold Schwarzenegger, the greatest bodybuilder of all time, for the first time since they've been having the show for 22 years, to stand up and say or mention a bodybuilder by name. I mean, and we all pretend it didn't happen in retrospect. I mean, the guy went to the next day and took the judges to the woodshed on the call, right?
Yeah.
So I mean that's based on showdown number one, Justin versus Cedric. I would say physically Cedric came out on top, and God forbid if Cedric had the gut that that Compton had last year, right? People would be screaming over it. His gut was ridiculous last year. The X factor is how big is his gut going to be this year? You don't know. That said, I will defend Justin and say,
sure,
in Australia, he fixed that problem. He looked really good a week later, really good, a lot better. So, but the point is that happened, so that's comparing and contrasting those two. Frankly, Kai is I said he would never compete again. I said that at the Prague, and wow, that was pretty. So far, I'm 100% right, Dave?
Yes.
I mean, he pulled out of the Arnold, and he's probably nuttier than Cedric is. So maybe having said all that and dissed Justin, all Justin has to do is show up, or Branch has to show up, because you're dealing with two other people who are have mental stress running into shows.
John Romano, let's go to you on this one. Again, we gave both Fakhri and Chris an opportunity to make a case for Justin Compton and Cedric McMillan. I want to give you the same opportunity. Pick one of the two, Justin or Cedric. Make a case for why you think they're going to go in there and best Kai Greene at the show.
That's a tall order. I don't know if either of them are going to do that. But if I were to have to pick between the two, I'm going to side with Arnold and pick Cedric. You know, and the reason I'm going to do that is because I just think that I just like that physique better. You know, and I think that if we're looking for a means to bring some artistic value back to bodybuilding and look at what clean physiques look like and great lines and that X frame, tiny waist, and all of that, then I think Cedric is the model citizen for that. So I mean, if that's the ideal they want to put up there, unfortunately, it kind of clashes with Kai Greene. You can't put the two of those next to each other. But what can I tell you? They're two different. They're one's an apple, one's an orange. But still, you got to choose what you like best. You got to put the character, the man away, and you got to look at the physique. And whether it's whatever name attached to it is irrelevant. It's the body from the neck down, and you gotta see who's the top dog from that department. And for me, I think Cedric McMillan is the guy that should be knocking on the door.
So you don't really put much credence into the angle of Kai Greene not being quote unquote mentally prepared. You think his physique, assuming he brings his best, is going to be good enough to stand on its own?
Well, yeah, it's every time we talk about Kai, we have to talk about his mental state. It's
3 years running.
Like we're dealing with an outpatient here. And I want to advocate for Kai. I don't think that's fair. I mean, some people diet like really well, and some people get freaking brain dead. And I think Kai, full of all the carbs in the world, is a trip to talk to. So I mean, when he's depleted and out there in fairyland, I mean, it's Neverland. It's really difficult to ascertain whether what he's doing. Whether is he contemplating running away? Is he contemplating coming to the show like in incredible shape? Is he contemplating not showing up? He's done everything. So we don't know. It's always interesting to try to see what he's going to do. Mentally, absolutely, he can do it. I mean, he's proven that. Kai has zero to prove in the mental department. He's done it all. He's the most popular bodybuilder on the face of the earth. More people follow him than anybody else. He's obviously doing something right. So whether we are attracted to his mental state or it's a factor that we can consider as part of his character, maybe. But I think Kai, both his physique and his persona with his mental problems, issues, whatever you want to call them, mental conditions, he's amazing, and that's why we come to see these shows. It's an attraction. We want to see Kai. We want to see what his mental state is, what his body looks like, what his combination of all of that together. If he's going to melt down, he's entertaining. So of course, I'm always going to defer to him because he makes bodybuilding interesting.
Let me give you one more here. And again, we talked about pulling out of the Prague Pro, not attending last year's Olympia. This is a question that fans in the back of their minds might be wondering, so I'm going to give you the crack at this. Do you see any foreseeable way that between now and the next 2.5 weeks, Kai Greene pulls out of this show?
I mean, anything can happen. Sure, there's a foreseeable way. Is it probable? No, I think he's doing the show. I don't think there's anything going on that's gonna, well, certainly we don't heard anything. And I talked to people, inside the industry. I was talking to a pretty popular manager today, and we were talking about Kai. And it all seems like all the lights are green, all systems are go. So, we'll have to wait out 2.5 weeks, but I don't think you're going to see any problem. I think you're going to see, my prediction is Kai's going to show up on stage better than you've ever seen him before, and he's going to rock the house because that's what he needs to do. And Kai's one of those kind of people that ultimately does what he needs to do.
Dave, let's get a final word on you for this one. First, we're talking about Kai Greene mentally and whether or not he's mentally ready to go in and win the 2016 Arnold. And of course, I gave all three panelists an opportunity to make a case for Justin Compton or Cedric McMillan. So if you want to have it, that as well.
All right, I think the key point, and I think John mentioned it but didn't really follow up on it, when was Kai his best? Kai was at his best when he was with Oscar. And I think that he's lacking Oscar now. And I think Oscar was the key to Kai's mental stability, or at least stability enough to attain his best on stage. I don't think you'll ever keep him completely stable. And I think that some of his kookiness is part of his creativity and what makes him, appealing to us as fans. However, I think Oscar keeps him grounded enough, or kept him grounded enough, to be his best on stage on the day of the contest. And that's what it's all about. I don't think with Oscar in his corner that Kai can do it. I know Chris Aceto would probably concur with that statement. Having said that, Romano also made an interesting comment about bringing balance. And I thought you were going to say bringing balance to the force. Who brings balance to the bodybuilding industry? And I believe it's Justin Compton. I think he's the man that will bring balance. And I think that pretty much everyone up on that stage who's a contender is getting old now. And I think we really, at this point, we need a new, fresh face to step up, take the spotlight, bring the industry to the next level. And I think Compton is the guy to do it. I think sitting out the Olympia was a smart move on his part this year. I think he's going to come into this show very fresh. He's going to look his best. And I think he's going to beat Kai Greene. And I think we're going to see a new Arnold champ, and he's going to have tremendous momentum going into the Olympia later this year.
I think you're out of your mind.
It is my birthday. I'm entitled.
That's true.
That's it? You're not going to go on with that point?
Yeah, why am I out of my mind?
I mean, you said keep your answers succinct. I thought that was succinct.
He just said he's out of his mind, so please carry on.
When was Kai Greene ever in shape without Oscar?
Yeah.
All right.
That was his point.
Chris, what do you think about that?
I think that's neither here nor there. I'm talking about Justin Compton. You're talking about Kai Greene. I thought we were talking about Justin Compton.
I think
Dave.
so. You got it, Fak.
You might get a call from George Farron in a little bit.
He's been missing in action more than Kai has. Have you heard a peep from him?
But let me finish my point.
Chris buried him, I think, in Maine somewhere.
Look, you got to have a Justin Compton come along, and the reason is because just like you said, Dave, we've been looking at the same shit for years, year after year after year. So it's time the floodgates open, and we get some some fantastic, marvelous examples of bodybuilders come out of the woodwork like happens every few decades. We need a floodgate like the 90s to come along and usher in at least a few, 3, 4 guys that are, contenders that can give, Kai, Branch, Phil, everybody a run for their money and mix up that top row,
Jesus, pull Branch, retract that Branch fucking statement, dude.
What
That's
do
a
you say?
candidness.
We're going to move on to our next topic of debate. Again, you're watching Iron Debate on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by SciTech Nutrition. Visit SciTechNutrition.com. We now go and discuss the 212 division. And, of course, the title on the bottom is going to say Jose Raymond. Will he repeat? And we'll get to that at the end of this conversation. But the marvelous thing about Jose Raymond is that we're talking about a bodybuilder who now, at over the age of 40, really is in his best condition, in his peak condition, of course, coming off that 2015 Arnold Classic Championship. So, Chris Aceto, we're going to start with you on this one. What is it about Jose that at this age makes him more dominant than he's ever been in his career?
He's the simple answer. He's come into his own mentally. There's the intangible in bodybuilding called confidence. It's funny, we're coming off this, Kai question, which, supposedly he's confident, but I can tell you he's not confident. So, the thing with Jose is, you could post a picture up of Jose 11 weeks out, and he'd look like he's going to get dead last in the Long Island amateur show because he's so fat. And you could show a picture of, Flex Lewis 11 weeks out, peeled out of his mind, and Jose will say, yeah, I got 11 weeks, I'll take him. And that's not arrogant. It's just, he knows he's got a lot of experience at this point, and he's had a lot of success in the last 2 or 3 years, and it's just building his level of confidence, but also his level of maturity in the gym. He knows exactly. I went down to see his workout the other day, and And what I can tell you is he's training to win the show. Anyone who's a bodybuilder, Fakhri can tell you, when you hit the groove and like, I'm going to win this show, you can just feel it. I'm not saying he's going to win the show, but I'm answering the question, what's changed for him? And it's just his level of maturity, knowing his body, having the maturity to say, you know what, I can't train hard today. I'm cutting the workout down to 20 minutes. Or having the maturity to say, I'm on like extremely low carbs, but I feel killer, and I'm going to, do an hour and a half of back. And I think that's what's made the difference for him in the last 2 years, those intangibles.
Facto, let's go to you on this one. What do you see out of Jose Raymond at this stage of his career?
He's gotten better and better. You have to remember that Jose Raymond started as middleweight, and from a middleweight, he had to grow into a 212, 202. Lightweight. And then actually as a lightweight, I think he was when he first started. So he was a lightweight, and then all the way up to, middleweight, and then 202, and then 212. So it's a matter of muscle maturity settling into the body. Those muscle fibers are getting mature, and just the overall training of years. I mean, he must be training for at least 20 years, and he's 40 years old. He's not old. I mean, he could still get better, and he has gotten better. But it's a lot what Chris said. He seems to have matured over the years and have a better understanding of the sport and what it needs. What he needs to do to stay on top instead of, winning a show and then finishing 7th, and then doing a show and, not even finishing in the top 5. The next show he wins, now he has a better understanding of what he needs to do as far as training, nutrition, and, he just mature overall. His body's mature and his mind is mature, which is more important than anything else.
John Romano, what do you see out of Jose Raymond, the Boston Mass, right now at this stage of his career, more dominant than he's ever been in his professional career?
I think, I don't know if it was Chris or Fakhri who said it, but he's coming into his own. I mean, he's at that perfect age. He's got the muscle maturity. He's been training for long enough. He's a freak. I mean, he's got one of those incredible physiques. You put him by himself, and he looks 6 feet tall. He's got everything, and it's all in proportion. He's got an amazing physique, and now he's really learning how to dial it in perfectly and get everything right. So I mean, I'm looking for big things from him. I think technically he could be the winner as long as he wants to be.
Dave, let's go to you on the final word on this one. Again, we're talking about Jose Raymond, and right now, beyond the age of 40, right now showing his best work in his professional career. What do you see out of him, and what makes him so dominant at this stage of his career?
Well, I got to remember, Jose Raymond was a natural bodybuilder for many, many years. I remember him winning Team Universe at lightweight, welterweight, middleweight. Then he moved up to nationals, and he finally took the pro. Matter of fact, people were getting pissed that he wouldn't take the pro card because he was winning every year. And he finally, took the pro card, and he just has made steady gains consistently. And I think that, that's the best way to grow because his shape and proportion are good. His skin tone is good. And I think, like Chris said, mentally now he believes he can win. He knocked off Eduardo Correa last year and proved that, he consistently can beat him. So really, Jose and Flex Lewis are the two top dogs in the 212 division. And I think when you're at that top position, it does give you a certain level of confidence. It also makes the judges know, hey, that's the guy that we're looking for now. When the judges are looking for you to be the champion, it's a lot easier to win. When they're not looking for you, you can get you can get looked over, you can get missed in the lineup. They might, they might pick another guy over you for whatever reason or another. He's the guy they're looking for now. So Jose has every right to be confident going into that Arnold that he's going to win that show because he's the defending champion and he's the number 2 bodybuilder at the 212 division in the world.
Let's get to the second.
Extremely good point.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
That's an extremely good point. It's the judges are looking for him. That's an incredibly important aspect of the whole thing, and something that he's got to contend with that maybe a lot of the other guys competing next to him don't. So he's got that extra layer of complication over what he's doing. And that's an extremely good point. The judges are looking for him. They're looking for him to be the best Jose Raymond, and their eyes are on him. So, yeah, that's an incredibly important aspect of his whole thing.
Well, of course, he is going in as a champ, and again, there's that saying, some agree, some disagree, you have to knock the champ out, but he's going to have some stiff competition. Earlier today, we had David Henry on Live With. If you're watching us live on YouTube, you can find that interview on rxmuscle.com and, of course, on our YouTube channel. So he's going to have to go up against David Henry, Hide Yamagishi, Charles Dixon, Guy Cesternino, a very tough squad in the 212 division. So, John, we're going to go to you on this one. Do you see Jose repeating, first of all? And if not, who out of that crop, David Henry, Hide, Charles Dixon, Guy Cesternino, do you see dethroning him for the 2016 title?
You know, this 212 class is getting better and better and better every year, I think. Personally, I think you see better physiques in the 212 than you see in the open because these guys are always for some reason are working harder. You know, David Henry is definitely a factor if he can put it back together the way he did in the old 202 days. I haven't seen a really good David Henry for a while now. Hide is another. You know, Hide looked amazing at the Olympia. I thought that was the best physique he's ever presented. So maybe he's found the secret and he's getting better and better and better. So, yeah, the competition in the 212 is definitely fierce. And there's amazing bodybuilders in there. That the competition is really deep. And Jose's got his hands full. Can he repeat? Absolutely. Will he repeat? Got to wait to show day.
Fakhri, what do you think as far as Jose Raymond's prospect for repeating? And if not, who out of that core of David Henry, Hide Yamagishi, Charles Dixon, and Guy Cesternino do you see coming out on top?
Well, I mean, the odds-on favorite for the show is Jose Raymond. He's a champion. He finished second to Flex Lewis at Olympia. Like what was mentioned earlier, you know, the judges are looking for him to win. The judges see the new him. They like the new him. You know, and him, you know, him coming in, you know, even better each show, it puts him as a favorite. That being said, you know, I would have him in first place. I think David has made, you know, some great changes over the last year. You know, he was away from bodybuilding for a while. So I think from last year to this year, you know, you're going to see something different. David is, you know, he's I think he's a 8-9-time IFBB champion. So,
yeah,
you know, he's won a lot of shows, you know, so he could put it together. Of course, David is, you know, his disadvantage is his legs, but they have come up a lot. And then you know, then you have guys, you know, who's won shows, but he lost to Charles Dixon, but he's also beaten Jose in the past. You know, then you have Charles Dixon, you know, who's beaten Guy. You know, so it's a lot of, you know, going back and forth. But I mean, if I had to pick three people, the top three, I would go with Jose Raymond. I would go with David Henry and Hide. Hide at 212 in shape. Hide in 212 out of shape does not look right. You know, even in the open, he just did not look right. But if he comes in that crisp conditioning like he did at the Olympia, you know, he has the portions with his posing, with his presentation, you know, and he does very well. So I would pick him third in that lineup.
So Fakhri has Jose 1, David Henry 2, and Hide Yamagishi, who finished second last year, coming in third. Chris Aceto, what say you?
I think it's going to come down to Jose and Hide. That's how I think the judges are going to call it. And I say that because Hide lost to Jose by a point last year, which was stunning because I didn't have him first or second last year, even though he looked really good. I had him third, distantly. So, you know, the real mix I would expect is to be Jose, Hide, and David Henry, and you know, and I'm sure everyone will agree it's going to come down to conditioning because, we don't even these guys' condition will destroy, the open guys' condition. The level of condition that Hide's capable of, that David Henry's capable of, that Guy Cesternino's capable of, that Jose Raymond's capable of, even Charles Dixon is capable of. It's almost laughable, because they're just gonna, and for some reason they're all nuts and warriors. Everyone else is going to be worried about their weight, and they're going to be worried about if they're full enough, and if they're, these guys are just going for all-out war peeled, and that's what makes it so exciting. So it's still hard to call, and I would say Jose's the favorite, but I would never say that he's a shoo-in by any means because anything can happen, and he's been just 2 years ago he was fifth in the show.
Right. So, Dave, we have Fakhri picking Jose, David Henry, and Hide Yamagishi. Chris going Jose, Hide, and David Henry. How do you see the 212 division shaking out?
I've been waiting probably for... When did we have Christian Duke on Iron Debate? About 2 or 3 months ago? I've been waiting 2 or 3 months for this moment. I am texting Jim Mannion at this moment, and because Jim Mannion texted me happy birthday because we share the same birthday, and I texted him back on the show, happy birthday, Jim Mannion.
Hey, Dave, put the phone away.
All right, phone's down.
Show up.
How's that for a comeback?
Wow. And that was a real call.
That was a real text, right?
Yeah, real text.
Exactly. My top 3. I go with Jose because he's the defending champion, and I like Jose, so I always have to favor my friends. And I would normally go Hide Yamagishi second, but I got to tell you, after having David Henry on Live with today and talking to him and seeing the level of confidence that he's exuding and putting out, I think he's going to be his best. I think he's going to give Jose a run for his money, and he's going to finish a very close second, and Hide's going to wind up in the 3rd position. So I go along with Fakhri's prediction.
So there we have it, John. You want to chime in with your top 3 as well?
I'm going to agree with Dave. Although actually, you know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to put Hide in second. That's what I'm going to do. Hide second, David Henry third, and Jose first.
All right. So we all have David Henry finishing in the top 3, along with Hide and, of course, the defending champion Jose.
I think Guy Cesternino is definitely a dark horse. I mean, if Guy comes in peeled, which he always is in condition, he's gotten better. The last couple shows.
I was going to ask Fakhri.
I think he's a dark horse right now.
Chris, go on.
I was going to ask Fakhri his opinion of Guy.
What's my what?
He just said it.
I'm just going to ask you what's your opinion of Guy and you said the dark horse because I agree.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to say it. I didn't
I have to
like
say it
Guy
because
does.
you're his coach, but I'm a very good friend of his. I think Guy has been overlooked for a long time. I mean, you look at his conditioning; he's shredded glutes, shredded hamstrings. He's just always in condition. So he's won shows that he's looked fantastic, and then there's other shows that he hasn't placed well. Like for example, in the Olympia, that he's looked like he has when he's won shows. So it's just a matter of where the judges want to place him. I mean, I think Guy is one of the most hardest working bodybuilders in the world. His mentality is that of a warrior. He has a great coach, and and saying he's a dark horse means that if anybody's out of shape, he could come in third or in 2nd place. Because he deserves it. I mean, he's always in condition. He's never fat, watery, or not in condition.
Yeah.
Again, you're watching Iron Debate on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by SciTech Nutrition, sponsoring RX Muscle's Iron Road to the Arnold Classic 2016. Visit SciTechNutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Glad you can join us on this Arnold preview edition of Iron Debate. Earlier on in the day, we had David Henry on Live With to check out the entire catalog of Live Wit's Iron Debates, Ask Dave, the 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo, Muscle in the Morning, and all the programming that we do. Check out rxmuscle.com and our YouTube channel. We now move on to our third topic as we now talk figure division. Last year, Kamala Rodriguez McClure coming in first place at the Arnold, and then a few months later at the Olympia, it was Latoya Watts dethroning Nicole Wilkins. How do you guys see this division shaking out now? Because now you have Kamala looking to assert her dominance in the figure division as far as this upcoming Arnold, and then you have the newly minted Olympia champion in Latoya Watts looking to really stake her claim in this division. You have some other quality competition as well with Candice Lewis. So Fakhri, will go to you on this one first. Kamala, what do you rate her prospects as she goes up now against the defending Olympia champion Latoya Watts?
I think Latoya is a genetical beast that has non-existent waist, quads that flare, and if she comes in condition, I don't think anybody could beat her in the world right now. I mean, and that includes Nicole Wilkins. Latoya is just getting better, and better, and I think this is her time. And we might see a good run of Olympia titles for her. As far as Kamala, she won last year. She looked fantastic when she won last year. Candice was doing the show also. Candice has done very well. It's going to be pretty competitive, but Latoya's a freak, and if she comes in shape, nobody's beating her in this lineup. It's just not happening.
John Romano, what do you make of the figure division as Kamala Rodriguez McClure? Of course, we also had on Live with yesterday. The interview is available on YouTube channel. The defending Arnold champion now going in looking to defend her crown against Latoya Watts. And as Fakhri said, really who is set primed for a potential dynastic run. How do you see figure shaking out?
I completely agree with Fakhri. Her physique, Latoya Watts' physique, is just retarded. Where did it come from? What planet? It's not from Earth. Okay, his waist is like this, and then she's got the quads, and her back is like you can sell ad space on it. So forget it. She needed to come along. Now that she's here, she's not going anywhere until she wants to. That's it. Everybody else, second place on down, you are not beating her unless you're related to her, and even then, it's probably going to be difficult.
Chris, now of course you had a front row seat in Vegas. Is your opinion that strong in favor of Latoya Watts, or do you give Kamala, based off what you saw last year in her win at the Arnold, a shot to repeat her own title?
No, I turned to Dave last year, and of course I'm clueless. I said, which is a good thing. When you're like mother goes to a show and she picks the winner and she says, I know nothing about bodybuilding, and let's say the judges get it wrong at some amateur show, and the mother, you say like, the mother says, well, this guy had, been a V-taper and this and that. I just turned to Dave, that's the analogy, and I said, I was blown away with Latoya Watts and said, who's this? And he told me who it was, and I said, that's the best body I've seen since Linda Murray at the 1989 North America in Vegas. Because when Linda Murray came out that year, she won the North America, Johnny Morant won the North America, and when Linda came out, I said, there's your Miss Olympia for the next 10 years. And, it's the kind of excitement you get when you see a tremendous, tremendous physique. And I think she can absolutely dominate. I think she's beautiful. I think I hate the word marketable. She's ridiculously marketable as far as I'm concerned, meaning what better, she's just like a specimen. What better body can you have to say, this is the IFBB's representation of this division? It'd almost be like saying, take a Bob Paris structure and put 60 pounds of ripped muscle on, he'd win for 40 years. So I can't see her being beat, at this point in time.
Dave, we're going to go to you for the final word on this one. Now, it's well documented. You've been a long-time believer in Latoya Watts, and in many senses, it's as if your opinion was really validated this past Olympia. But again, she is going up against the defending Arnold champion in Kamala Rodriguez McClure. How do you see this shaking up at the top of the figure division?
Now, I've been the biggest Latoya Watts advocator probably of anyone out there. As soon as she won the USA, I said she's going to win the Olympia. And, I'm glad that she proved that I was right. Now, having said that, I did see an ultimatum. I did see a letter put on the NPC website which said that they want the figure girls a little softer and a little smaller. Last year at the Arnold Classic, Latoya was 4th. I don't know how. And Kamala won. 6 months later at the Olympia, Latoya wins and Kamala's 4th. Okay, so I don't know what happened. But I do know one thing. After the Olympia, they made all these referendums about what they want in the divisions. So while I love Latoya's physique, she is extreme. Okay, so is Candice Lewis extreme. Who knows what's going to happen in 2016? What if the judges say, hey, we don't want someone this extreme. We want a more toned-down version of a figure representative. Because I could see Latoya Watts putting on 5 to 7 pounds of muscle and winning women's physique. I got news for you. She's got enough muscle, and she's got the shape. She would dominate that division for 20 years if she wanted to, probably. So I'm not so sure she's going to win this show. I'm nervous for her because I don't know what the powers that be, even though I just texted Jim Mannion, really think about.
Again?
No. Really think about, what the division should
I'm going to
define
text
as.
him.
I just did myself. I texted
If I wouldn't bet on this, I wouldn't bet on her. Assuming they accept that she's acceptable representation and her physique fits what they want, I agree with those guys. No one beats her. But always expect the unexpected in bodybuilding.
Hey, Dave, can I ask you a question? I mean, when the NPC and IFBB comes out, they come out, well, especially the IFBB, when they come out with these new standards, do you think they apply to the Arnold and to the Olympia? Because the freaks are the ones that win the shows all the time. I mean, I can see the smaller shows that they apply the standards to, but as far as like bodybuilding and figure and stuff like that, do you think they're really looking for these standards at the 2 biggest shows of the world?
Good question.
I'll hit you with one name. Do you remember Anya Schreiner?
Yeah.
Anya Schreiner won the Arnold Classic the year after they said they were downsizing the women. She was beautiful girl, small waist, but thin. She probably couldn't win women's physique right now. And she won the Arnold. Everyone was up in arms. They made a huge statement at that Arnold Classic, and it kind of followed suit the rest of the year, but then they went back to the old way. But the point is, sometimes to make a bold statement, they can do it at the first show of the year, which is the Arnold Classic. So that's why I'm saying, who knows what could happen at the Arnold? They might say, you know what, let's make a statement about what we want what we want figure to look like. And that's why I would be nervous if I was Latoya, because who the hell knows what they're going to do.
That is going to bring us to our last topic on this show. Again, you're watching Iron Debate, brought to you by SciTech Nutrition. Visit scitechnutrition.com. Sponsoring our coverage, our Iron Road to the Arnold, and then, of course, all our wall-to-wall coverage of the 2016 Arnold Classic. So keep it locked to rxmuscle.com. Our fourth and final topic is, well, the first 3 topics were specifically about the Arnold competition and the competitors. The fourth is going to be a little bit more general. So the question is how IFBB and NPC judges should be selected. Now, currently, if somebody's an aspiring judge, they have to test judge at a certain number of shows until their chairman thinks that they're ready to be a judge, an officially certified judge. So here's the question. Should there be a course, a standardized course, that an aspiring IFBB NPC judge should be required to take? And then who should teach it? Should there be a certification for as far as who's qualified to teach that kind of a course? So John Romano, we're going to go to you on this one. What do you think should be a criteria as far as instructing and vetting and then eventually selecting IFBB and NPC judges?
It's a good question and a tough one too, because who knows? I think in all reality, if you're going to teach a course on how to judge, then you need a judge, a head judge, the judge that determines the judging. And it's this one person that needs to explain the criteria of the judging to the other people that he wants to judge, because the idea is you got to look at it one of 2 ways. The judge either wants all the other judges to agree with him, or he wants all the other judges to have their own assessment of the physique, and hopefully more of them than not will favor one competitor or the other. So how do you get to that point? Well, obviously, there's a criteria that you need to, address that you're going to be looking for in the course of, teaching people how to judge. But I think, this test judging is kind of strange because it puts people in a odd position at shows because it's when it counts. But I think if the IFBB or the NPC had an actual camp or a course or something that judges needed to take and become certified in, I think that would be a great idea. And I think that they would be able to centralize the concept of what the criteria is and continually maintain that criteria, because you have one central agency, depicting what that criteria is and teaching what to look for to the potential judges. If it's structured like that, then yes. If you just got, random scattering of people all across the country test judging, I don't agree with that, no.
Fakhri Mubarak, we go to you next. Where do you stand on this as far as how IFBB and NPC judges, aspiring judges, should be taught, certified, and eventually selected for real IFBB NPC shows?
Okay, this is a very controversial topic. We're talking about a subjective sport. So if you're talking about teaching a course, the person who's teaching a course is going to teach a course according to what they think is a winning physique. That would be the problem with teaching a course. Now, I judged many shows for Steve Weinberger from 2005 to 2014. Almost all his New York shows, some shows in Jersey were Mads, a few Team Universe. I was fortunate enough to have, Jim Mannion as the head judge on most of these shows. So, I also had Mads, I also had Steve there, Bev. So I had a good amount of people to learn from. That being said, I also have been following bodybuilding since like the late 80s. My criteria to a winning physique, let's take bodybuilding for example, is a physique that's pleasing at the eye, good conditioning, enough muscularity. But a lot of people don't know how to judge. I mean, you get some of these pros that are test judges, and you sit them as a judge eventually, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? I mean, what are they looking at? And then you get other judges that, they don't know what they're doing. So and that's the honest fact. That's why I say it's very controversial. In my case, I'm a controversial person myself. So I rank people and I put people in the way I want to. I was never that judge that, well, you know what? When the head judge changed somebody, I erased my sheet. I didn't do that. I kept to whoever who I picked on my sheet. So, I mean, I don't honestly, like when Dave gave me the question, I knew it was going to be a controversial question, and I don't really have an answer to it. But you have to pick people that have experience in bodybuilding. You cannot get somebody from the street or even like a bodybuilder. I mean, maybe you should do like an IQ test. If you don't have a certain IQ, you can't judge. I mean, honestly, it's like it's some of the shows you sit at, you're like, what the fuck is going on? How does that person not beat that person when that person looks six weeks out? So it's a tough question. It's a controversial question. And I just think, there's a lot of ways of doing it, but you need to educate the person to understand what a winning physique is. And not one person could do that because it's a subjective sport, and it's tough, man. It's just, I wish I could really answer it, but it's tough.
Chris, where do you stand on this as far as how IFBB and NPC judges should be educated, certified, and selected?
Holy shit.
Great answer.
It's like taking what? You can send me into an art museum with the greatest art curator, and we can spend hours and hours and hours of teaching me how to appreciate abstract art or whatever, classical art or whatever subject matter you want to discuss. And I can put a lot of effort into learning how to digest that, and I can still be shit in knowing what I'm talking about. So the problem we face, of course, is how do you teach someone to be a good judge? I agree with Fakhri. I mean, I'm putting a little bit of words into his mouth. You can't teach anyone, but I would feel very comfortable. You know what? In this show, I was muted. I didn't know. When we were talking about the 212, I wanted Fakhri's opinion on Guy, and I wanted his opinion because I know he knows what he's talking about. That's what makes a good judge. And I was waiting for him to give me some insight, like, just make sure he's full enough, or make sure he's absolutely peeled, to maximize what he brings to maximize his placing. And I'd do the same with Dave. I mean, how many times have I said to Dave, what do you think? I send pictures to Dave. Dave, what do you think? He's 4 weeks out. What do you think? You think he should come down further? You think he's full enough? What I'm asking him really is judge the way he looks now and tell me what, not necessarily tell me what to do, but judge the physique now, with 2 weeks left, 10 days left, a week left, 4 weeks left, and tell me what you think. It's people who have been around the sport long enough to it comes naturally. Because of that, I don't think it's something that you can teach. And I think you can be the fattest, slobbiest looking person and have the greatest eye going. I know people I run into at shows now. I've known for 25 years, and I love seeing them because over the years I've got to know them somehow, and I value their opinion, and they can digest a bodybuilding contest and dissect it, or a physique like Arnold, better than Arnold, Lee Haney, and Joe Weider put together. And they're not judges, but they're not taking courses either. So I agree with Fakhri. It's a very difficult question. We're in an opinion-based sport, and that's why when it comes to things like when people say, how do you think so-and-so, do you think he should have won? I usually say, damn it, yes, I should have. These are the reasons why, and usually I follow that up with, of course, they're just my opinions, and they could be biased. I don't even know where my bias lies sometimes. So it's I'll defer to Dave, El Capitan, to see what he has to say.
Dave, let's get your final word on this one. What do you make as far as aspiring IFBB NPC judges being trained, certified, and eventually selected for shows?
I think it would be nice to have a course that they have to take, whether it be at like Nationals weekend, they do some judging courses. They might even do that. I don't know. But I'd like to have, there should be some people teaching how to judge properly. But I think the bottom line is, look, the two best judges out there right now are Jim Mannion and Steve Weinberg. And I'm not saying that to kiss ass. I've watched them judge. They very, very rarely ever get it wrong. There's never controversy when they're the head judge. Okay? That tells me they know what they're talking about. And I can talk shop with them afterwards, and I can tell that they can justify their decisions and they make logical sense. All right? Having said that, there are a lot of judges that don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and I'll talk to after, and it's like talking like to the wall, basically, because the illogicality is unbelievable. They don't really have a good grasp of what they're doing. You know what? And Jim Mannion and Steve Weinberger know who those people are. They should get tossed off the panel. Not everyone's a great judge. You can have a great bodybuilder who's not a good judge, just like you have a great football player who might not be a good football coach, and then you might get a football player who wasn't such a great player, but he's an awesome coach. Same thing with judges. They know who the good judges are. They know who the bad ones are. Get rid of the bad ones. Throw them off. Just say, look, you know what? We can't use you anymore. And the people who get the decisions right and who knew what they're talking about, those are the people you keep on the panel. And don't feel bad if people are getting old and maybe they can't sit there all day anymore because they're 70 years old, these judges. Sorry, you're retired. We'll retire you with honors. Next person on that panel. I want people that are going to be able to stay alert, judge each class, and have a reason to be able to justify their decisions. And there are people out there who can do that. And I think those are the people who should be judging. Because you know what? These athletes put so much time and effort into preparing for these shows. They spend a ton of money. The outcome of these shows can dictate whether they make a living or not after the show's over. It's important that we give them the best judges. And I say take the top echelon of judges that we know are good, let them be the selection process, weed out the crap, and keep the good people.
Finally, on a wrap-up note of this topic, and again, we've talked about bodybuilding being a subjective art form. So, Fakhri, we're going to start with you on this one. Is there any way to standardize judging of bodybuilding, or is this always going to be a subjective art form in the end?
It can't be because there's no objective way of winning. Like, I can't pin John Romano. John Romano can't knock me out. I can't hit a home run off of Johnny Styles. I can't throw a football to Dave Palumbo. I can't wrestle with Chris Aceto. So there's no objective way of winning it. It's just like it's by the eyes and whoever like I said, like Dave mentioned, the two best coaches. The two best judges out there are Jim Mannion and Steve Weinberger. And like I said earlier, I was blessed to have them when I started judging to learn from them. But I don't see a way of having an objective way of judging any of these divisions because there's no objective way of winning. We're not lifting weights. We're not squatting. We're not bench pressing. We're not curling. There's no strength contest. It depends what I like and what John likes, what Chris likes, what Dave likes. And hopefully, we know what we're doing and we place the person high enough because these athletes are busting the ass. I know when I competed, I killed myself. I was always in condition, and I would fucking die. I would literally fucking die if I had to get on stage. And for me to be judged in front of 6, 7, 8 people and not get judged correctly, nowadays, I wouldn't even know how to react or would I even come back to bodybuilding. So we can't discourage these athletes by not having the right judges. And and to answer the question, no, I don't think there's a way of objectively judging these divisions. But we need the right judges. We have to keep the right judges. We have to give them a reason to keep judging and just keep the best ones on board and the ones that are not good judges, which a lot of us know are not good judges, kick them out. Say goodbye. I'm sorry. Do something else.
John, what do you think? Is there a way to bring any sort of, to standardize the judging procedure, or like Fakhri said, it's always going to be a subjective art?
Yeah, I don't know. I think so. There was this guy. He was from Poland, I think, or Czechoslovakia, many years ago, back in the 90s. And what he had done, he was a scientist, and he created this process to electronically or digitally judge a bodybuilding show. And basically what he did was he had an image of the perfect physique in hitting each of the mandatory poses. And this was a computer-generated perfect physique. Now, and then what would happen is he would take the competitors and he would lay their images on top of the engineered perfect physique, and the computer program that he wrote would crunch every single number pertaining to how each line lined up from the bodybuilder to the anatomical perfection. And within a certain percentage, each person hit that ideal, within a percent. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. But what it did was it focused the attention to who decides what that image looks like? Who decides what that anatomically perfect physique is? Dave, you have a trophy in your office in the house that's got this physique from this guy. I think he's in one arm on it, one bicep up and one hand on his hip. Or no, both hands up over his head, doing like the myth pose. And that to me, that is like the ultimate. His lats come all the way down to his waist. He's got, sick quads. He's got an amazing arms. So is that image that you're going to compare everybody else to that way blown out, freakazoid? Or are they going to determine, how much perfection you can have in a human being? Then you could have a standardized judging once you agreed on that and had to agree that everybody had to sort of electronically, not subjectively, but actually physically measure up to that ideal. Then you could have a standardized method of voting and you wouldn't need judges. It's kind of like ordering at McDonald's now that they want $15 minimum wage. You order from a machine.
Chris, where do you stand on this one?
On the judging, right?
Yes.
No, McDonald's.
Yeah, or McDonald's. Whichever direction you want to go in this one.
I heard the word McDonald's.
What is the topic? I cut
Aspiring
out.
aspiring IFBB and NPC judges. Should there be
You drinking Schlitz over there with Jose?
Should there be
a course? Should there be a course?
Should there be exactly a curriculum to get them up to speed, I guess, and there should be a certification process.
No, that wasn't the question.
Make a course.
Question is there a way to standardize judging?
Oh yeah, well we're at part B now. So
there's no. You know what the problem is? I don't think you can give a course, and the problem is if you try to standardize judging, then what happens is, you know what I don't want is people. I agree with Dave's statement that Weinberger and Mannion are the best judges, and I can say that, on a disagreement I had with Weinberger, when I listened to his opinion, I'm like, well, fuck it, you're right. You know what I mean? And so, and then I think once I heard his opinion, I realized, you know what? I think the other judges had it wrong. So I told him, we just need a dictatorship. We don't need the other judges. But the point is, I just don't want to get to the point where you have other judges wanting to agree with, quote, the two best judges.
Right.
It's really hard to say because it's just such an opinionated sport. If you give a course, what's the expectation? That everyone agrees with the two people we just said who are the best judges? Right?
Pretty much.
By definition, if you have a course and it's given it's an 8-week course and every single day they meet with Mannion and Weinberg, I'm just illustrating the absurdity of it. And you have, all 400 people learning how to judge, then there's no variance in opinions. And I think variance in opinions are good. And that's why, when I say, damn it, this guy's number one, if Fakhri says, Chris, you're out of your mind, take another look at it. Or if Dave says, Chris, you're wrong, I'll take another look at it and say, well, you guys are right. Or, you know what, I still stick by my opinion, but I see your point. And that's the problem that we've always had in bodybuilding is people view physiques in a different way. I mean, it's easy for us to pick, first, second, third when it's clear. But when it gets bunched up, what are you going to do? Go buy a computer model or whatever, or go buy, I don't know if there's any big upside on a course.
Right.
I just hate courses because they sound like credibility, but they're not credible. That's what I mean. You can have a guy who never took no courses ever, and he's a great judge, and he's a fat pig. And then you could have former competitors who are in tremendous condition,
right,
shape, all their entire 10 years after competing, they won pro shows, they take the courses, and they still suck as judges.
So, Dave, let's get your final word on this one. Is there any way to standardize judging in bodybuilding, or is it always going to be a subjective art form?
Branch Warren versus Cedric McMillan. Which do you like better? I bet if I interview 100 people, you'll get 50-50. That's the problem.
Actually, I disagree with you. If you went to the Atlantic City, you get like 99% one.
Well, then there is a way to standardize it. Then there is a way, and maybe the best judges need to educate the other judges on what the right way
Dave,
to judge
I disagree
is.
with you. Let me disagree on one point. And this is the oddity of judging. I will to this day say, and you can disagree with me, or Fakhri can disagree, or John can disagree. At the Atlantic City, for example, you had Cedric standing next to
Branch,
and that's it. It was a two-person call-out. And interestingly, the overwhelming consensus everywhere on the planet Earth was that Cedric was beating him easily. Not easily, but won. Okay, Phil gets a call-out with 4 different people. When Phil is in a call-out with 4 people in prejudging, it becomes this like, wow, is Phil that good? But if you put Phil side by side with those same 4, he probably can beat him handily. You know what I mean? It's
no. What I mean is some people like more muscle and more conditioning, like Branch, and some people like beauty, like
Dave,
Cedric.
my point was this. I didn't make my point then. My point is when you compare 2 people alone, they look different compared to those same 2 people with 5.
True.
And that changes the dynamic a lot of times in the judging. And what I mean by that is, in Atlantic City, Cedric looked vastly different next to Branch than when you put him next to Compton, next to Branch, next to Dexter from the Arnold. And the same thing, everyone was shitting on Phil after this year's prejudging of the Olympia. One of the reasons is because you had a 4-person call, and not only did you have a 4th-person call, you had them all mixed up over and over. Versus years before, you just have Phil and Kai, and then, you asked me after the prejudging and said, I wanted to give it to Kai, and I was rooting for Kai, and Phil's most muscular knocked him out at the end, and I think his side chest and possibly, so the dynamic is different. So I think it's getting away from standardized judging, but sometimes it's easier to judge when you're only judging 2 people versus 4. It's much easier for me to draw the distinctions on who is different, and you're not talking as much as apples and oranges. Branch does good in a lineup of 6 people. When he's right next to only one person, he falls apart because you get to the back and you say, well, his back is weak. You get, his condition in the back shots is weak. His body structure is odd. But if he's in there with 6 people, you say, well, he's gnarly, he's got thin skin, he's got a crazy most muscular, these guys had weak that, and he starts to, move up.
That is going to do it for this episode of Iron Debate, brought to you by SciTech. He's at the top of his head on the camera. Once again, all this coverage of the Iron Road to the Arnold, sponsored by SciTech Nutrition. For all the athlete interviews, all the personality interviews that we're doing on live with this show, Iron Debate, Muscle in the Morning, Ask Dave, all the programming that we have featured for you. It is available on our YouTube channel and, of course, on rxmuscle.com. Sign up for the Muscle Central Forum. That is where you're going to get all the analysis, Dave's live play-by-play during the Arnold, that and a whole lot more. For Fakhri Mubarak, John Romano, Chris Aceto, of course, Johnny Styles, our producer, and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.